She was hired to protect a child, so why was her handwriting the last thing found? The Morgan family thought they'd found the perfect sitter. Sweet, soft-spoken, trustworthy. Her name was Sierra Nolan, and in just 6 weeks, she felt like part of the family. But that night, the apartment told a different story. No forced entry. No neighbors heard a sound. Just an open journal on the table, and the final page signed, trembling, by the one person no one suspected. The porch light blinks once, twice before going completely dark. A motion sensor lamp near the garage hums faintly in the silence. The air smells of warm pavement, wet mulch, and something else, distant like burnt cinnamon and ozone, the smell that hovers just before a storm breaks. It's 10:03 p.m., and Sierra Nolan hasn't texted back. Inside the home tucked on Marigold Lane, everything is still. Children's toys are stacked neatly in the living room. A single bottle sits half-finished on the coffee table. The baby monitor glows green, and the child upstairs is fast asleep. But Sierra is not in the kitchen. She is not gathering her bag, not texting her boyfriend, not standing by the front door with her shoes already on. She is nowhere, and yet the front door is locked from the inside. Earlier that night, neighbors remember hearing soft laughter, the kind that floats through open windows on a summer night. Danica and Trey Moore had left at 7:20 for a dinner downtown. Sierra arrived at 7 sharp. Mila was already bathed, wrapped in her bunny towel. Everything was routine. That's what makes what happened next so hard to explain. At exactly 10:11 p.m., Danica texts, "On our way. You good?" No response. 10:18 she calls. Straight to voicemail. She calls again, and again. Then panic. That rising feeling in the chest that something is off, but you don't know why yet. They arrive at 10:26. The driveway's empty. The living room light is still on. Nothing is broken, but Sierra is not there. In the hours that follow, what begins as concern swells into a slow-building nightmare. The back gate is found slightly ajar. Her phone is gone. Her shoes, both of them, sit neatly by the hallway mat. No signs of a struggle. No fingerprints. No screams. Just absence. A girl who should be here, and isn't. A house that feels colder than it should. And a 15-year mystery that begins in a whisper. The babysitter didn't just leave. She slipped away. You wouldn't think the girl with the sunflower phone case and chipped purple nail polish had been through much. To most, Sierra Nolan was the reliable babysitter. Quiet, polite, always early. She braided Mila's hair with delicate fingers and left thank you notes on the fridge. But behind that calm voice and warm smile was something else. A kind of watchfulness. Like she was always listening for something the rest of US couldn't hear. She was 17 and in the final summer before graduation. And though her face rarely showed it, Sierra had spent the past 6 months rebuilding. From what? That part she rarely said out loud. But her closest friend, Cleo James, knew. So did her guidance counselor. Even her stepfather, who said less than he should have, sensed it. Sierra had once locked her door 3 times before sleeping. She used to keep a journal full of pages she ripped out and never rewrote. She flinched at sudden knocks. She startled at doorbells. And on the nights the wind howled, she slept with earbuds in, soft music humming loud enough to drown out memory. But lately things were changing. She was getting better. The new babysitting job was part of that. Every Friday night with Mila Moore, feeding her spaghetti, reading bedtime stories, making up silly songs that ended with giggles. Danica, Mila's mom, had said, "She's a natural. Mila loves her." And Sierra loved the quiet. She liked the way the house settled at night. She liked the soft hum of the dishwasher, the lullaby glow of the hallway nightlight, and the calm that came when everything felt still but safe. She had just applied to 2 local colleges. Her essay had started with, "I know how it feels when silence is not peaceful." Her teacher said it gave her goosebumps. A week before that final night, Sierra told Cleo, "I think I'm finally okay. Not all the way, but getting there." They'd been sitting at the skate park. Not skating, just watching the boys fail their tricks and laughing too hard. She had a soda in one hand, her legs tucked beneath her, and that guarded smile that never quite reached her eyes. But it was more open than usual. Brighter. She hadn't said that to anyone in a long time. Her mom said she'd started sleeping without her bedroom light on. She'd stopped checking the back door twice. She began setting future plans, summer movies, college tours, an interview for a weekend job at a bookstore downtown. She was inching forward, little by little. But there's something cruel in the way time works. Because sometimes, just when you start to breathe again, just when the air no longer feels like glass in your throat, just when the noise in your head quiets, something shifts, and you don't realize that moment, that exact hour, that exact babysitting night, that exact 10:03 p.m. when no one hears from you again, wasn't just another quiet evening. It was the end of one life, and the beginning of the one the rest of us will spend years trying to understand. The morning after Sierra didn't respond, Cleo James sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, still wearing the hoodie she slept in. The same one Sierra had loaned her weeks ago, covered in tiny ink stains from a broken pen. Her phone buzzed once, then again. A third time. Group chat pings. Danica's name. Police cruiser emoji. Call me if you hear anything. But no one really knew what they were hearing. Because no one really knew Sierra. They thought they did. But Sierra had a way of showing just enough. Just enough to seem okay. Just enough to make people stop asking. Her stepfather, Greg, had once said, "She's too quiet for a teenager. Makes you wonder what she's thinking." He said it like a joke, tossing car keys on the counter. But her mother hadn't laughed. She just folded laundry in silence. Because she remembered when Sierra used to never stop talking, before the summer 2 years ago. The summer her biological father showed up again. The summer he promised change, then left a scar no one could see but her. That's when the locks became a ritual. That's when she started drawing dark pencil sketches of faces without eyes. That's when she stopped dancing in the kitchen. That's when she learned how to pretend. And then there was Mrs. Celeste Ward, the neighbor. She'd lived across the street since before Sierra was born. Watched her ride her first bike. Watched her grow quiet. Watched her take the babysitting job next door. Celeste didn't like people much. Her blinds were always half closed. But she noticed things. The week before Sierra worked her final shift, she'd told another neighbor something strange. "That girl's too cautious. Always looking behind her. Like she's waiting for someone she doesn't want to see." She said she once saw a dark sedan pull up and idle across from the Moore's house. Engine running. Lights off. No one got out. She assumed it was nothing. She assumes that a lot now. Sierra had also recently blocked someone. She never told Cleo who. But the name had come up in a heated whisper once. Micah Granger, the pastor's son. Clean-cut. Polite. Too polite. The kind of boy who smiled with everything but his eyes. They went to the same school. He had offered to walk her home twice. She said no both times. On the second rejection, he left a note inside her locker. It read, "You'll feel safer with me around." No signature. No context. She never reported it. Just tucked it into her journal and said nothing. That journal hasn't been found. Detective Dorian Reyes, who would later take over the case, would say in an interview, "We looked for chaos. There was none. We looked for a break-in. Nothing. But the silence? That told its own story. Because Sierra Nolan didn't scream. She didn't call for help. She didn't leave signs behind. She just slipped out of frame. Not like someone being taken, but like someone already tired of running. There were no alarms. Just an empty couch. A baby still sleeping. And a last message, never sent. "I think someone's outside." It was typed, but never delivered. The last day started like every other one that summer, with heat waves rising off the pavement and the scent of fresh-cut grass floating in through her bedroom window. Sierra had eggs for breakfast. Scrambled, dry, just how she liked them. She played Mila's favorite lullaby twice while folding the tiny baby clothes Danica left for her to sort. She replied to 3 texts with LOL. She posted a black and white photo of her sneakers and captioned it, "Almost over." No one knew what she meant. At 12:43 p.m., Cleo sent a meme. Sierra reacted with a laughing emoji, then followed with, I had that dream again. Someone knocking, but I couldn't move. The front door or the back? Both. Cleo typed out a reply, then deleted it. She didn't know what to say. At 3:17 p.m., Sierra stopped by the corner cafe before heading to the moors. The barista, a quiet guy named Theo, remembered her because she didn't order anything. She just stood there for a few seconds, eyes on the reflection in the pastry case. He said later, she looked like someone trying to count how many exits there were. By 5 p.m., she was back home, showered, dressed. Dark jeans, a gray tee, hair pulled into a loose braid like always. She told her mother, I'll be back by 10:30. Her mother said, I left your night light out, just in case. Sierra smiled, but her hands trembled slightly when she tied her shoelaces. At 6:40 p.m., she texted Cleo again. If something ever happens, just don't say I was fine. Cleo replied with a string of question marks. But Sierra never answered. She arrived at the Moore's house at 7:02 p.m. The Ring camera footage confirmed it. A soft knock, a gentle wave at the lens. She looked normal, tired maybe, slightly puffy. But her voice, as recorded on the doorbell mic, was calm. Hi Mila Bug, ready for your stories tonight. That was the last time anyone heard her speak. Danica Moore later told police that Sierra had asked two strange questions before they left. Do all your windows lock from the inside? Has anyone else ever babysat here before? Danica thought she was just being cautious. When Mila was tucked in, Sierra read her The Bear in the Night House, a story about a creature that waits outside until someone lets it in. At the final line, the door stayed closed, but the knocking didn't stop. Mila asked, Are you scared of bears? Sierra replied, I used to be. Now I'm just scared of people. What happened between 9 p.m. and 10:11 p.m. remains a gap no one has been able to fill. There were no screams, no broken windows, no mess, but something pulled the air out of that house. Because when the Moores returned, they said it was like walking into a place that had just been holding its breath. The couch cushion still bore the imprint of where Sierra had been sitting. Her phone charger was plugged in. The baby monitor showed Mila sound asleep. The back door? Not open, but not locked either. Just slightly ajar, like someone had leaned into it and then changed their mind. And on the kitchen counter, her notebook was left out, open to a single page. Nothing written on it. Just one circle drawn over and over again. So dark the pen had torn the paper. People always want to believe something happened all of a sudden. That the danger came fast. That it couldn't have been prevented. But this wasn't sudden. It was slow. It was quietly building. And everyone missed it. At first glance, the house looked untouched. No broken locks. No dragged footprints. No shattered glass or turned over furniture. But something was missing. Something louder than chaos. More alarming than blood. It was the stillness. Too clean. Too neat. Like the night had tried to erase itself. Detective Dorian Reyes arrived at 10:56 p.m., just 30 minutes after Danica's frantic call. He stood in the foyer, arms crossed, his jaw tense. The baby was safe. The front door was still bolted. The lights were on. But the air in the house, he would later say, it felt like someone had left in a hurry, but also like they'd never planned to leave at all. The first thing Reyes requested was the doorbell footage. The Moore's Ring camera had recorded everything that happened on the front porch that evening, or so they thought. 7:02 p.m. Sierra arrives. Smiles. Waves. 9:46 p.m. Porch light flickers. 10:03 p.m. Nothing. 10:11 p.m. Danica's text. Unanswered. No one enters. No one leaves. Just a faint flicker of motion near the corner of the screen. Reyes rewinds. Slows the footage. Frame by frame. At 9:47, something moves in the bottom right corner. A brief reflection on glass. Then gone. Danica insisted the side yard wasn't gated. Anyone could have walked back there. But why no forced entry? Why no sound? The living room camera, a nanny cam installed near the fireplace, Had been offline since 8:31 p.m. Battery failure. Or something else. When the techs pulled the last 10 seconds before it cut out, they found nothing unusual. Just Sierra sitting on the couch, phone in hand, a faint crease between her eyebrows. Then, she turned her head, suddenly, sharply, like she'd heard something, and then the screen cut to black. But the most unsettling clue came from next door. Celeste Ward, the neighbor, had an old backyard camera mounted facing her shed. She'd mostly used it to catch raccoons. But when investigators reviewed the footage from that night, the camera had caught the back of the Moore's house. At 9:53 p.m., a motion-triggered light above the Moore's rear patio flicked on. A shadow moved across the yard. Tall, deliberate, not running, not sneaking, just walking. What's worse, the figure stopped, stood near the edge of the patio, looking up toward the second-story windows, then turned, and left the frame. The footage was grainy. No face, no clear clothing. But one detail sent a cold ripple through the room when played back. The shape was holding something. Long, thin, possibly metal. And as they enhanced the audio, beneath the wind and static, a whisper broke through. Soft, almost playful. A single word. Sierra. The tech looped it again. The detective leaned forward. Danica's breath caught in her throat. Cleo, when told about it later, covered her mouth and said, she used to say she heard that, sometimes at night, like someone was saying her name outside her window. She thought it was a dream. By morning, everything changed. This was no longer just a missing person report. This was something else. Something that had been waiting, planning, watching, and now it had left behind its first trace. The media hadn't gotten wind of the details yet, but the tone of the investigation had already shifted. Reyes requested additional surveillance pulls from 3 surrounding houses. He questioned every neighbor, asked for doorbell footage, dashcam videos, even ring alerts from residents a street over. Most turned up nothing, except for one odd detail. At 9:51 p.m., 3 separate smart home systems in the neighborhood registered a Bluetooth ping from an unknown device, all within 200 feet of the Moore's address. The ID, M. Granger 22, Micah Granger, the pastor's son. The phone was old, not broken, not hidden, just buried beneath the gardenia bush, half covered in soft, moist soil. The kind that still carries warmth from a summer evening but chills your fingertips underneath. A week had passed, and it wasn't the police who found it. It was the neighbor's dog, Nico, a 12-year-old golden retriever who barked at mailmen but never bit. He was nosing through the side yard when he started pawing at the dirt, whining. Celeste Ward called it in. She didn't want to get involved again. But the dog wouldn't stop crying. Detective Reyes came quietly. No sirens, no media, just gloves, silence, and a hunch. The phone was still locked, but the battery had enough life left for one alert to flash when they pressed the side button. One unsaved voice memo, 9:58 p.m. They didn't open it at the scene. Reyes waited until he was back at the precinct, behind closed doors, with only one forensic tech beside him and the kind of silence that hums in your bones. They played it once, then again, volume maxed, each ear attuned to the unspoken. First, nothing, just background hum. A refrigerator, maybe, the soft, rhythmic thud of a dryer tumbling in the distance. Then footsteps, 2 sets, one softer, the other hesitant. A pause, then a whisper. Is someone there? Is Sierra's voice, but not the version her friends knew. This was small, tight, like her throat had closed halfway. The sound of a creaking door. A long exhale, then a name. Micah. No reply, just silence. And then a low voice. Male. Calm, but wrong. Not threatening, but expectant, like someone standing at the edge of a decision they've already made. You weren't supposed to be scared. A sudden shift. The recorder fumbles. Fabric rustles. A short, sharp breath. Then footsteps again. Faster. Retreating. And finally, one last whisper. So faint they had to isolate the frequency to hear it. I locked the door. I know I did. End of file. Reyes leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. The forensic tech didn't speak. No one did. Because the weight of that final sentence wasn't just about the door. It was about everything. Everything Sierra had been trying to lock out. Everything that still found its way in. Her mother cried when she heard it. Not loud. Not violently. Just one long breath held too long. Then a collapse. She said, "She always checked the locks. Every night. I should have known." That meant something. Cleo listened to it once. She didn't ask to hear it again. She just stood in the corner of the room, arms crossed so tight her knuckles went white. "She told me about the dream," she said. "The one where she couldn't move. The one where she heard someone say her name, and the door wouldn't open." She paused, swallowed. But maybe it wasn't a dream. The audio file, just over 40 seconds long, was sent to a forensic audio lab. They cleaned the background noise. They isolated the male voice. They slowed it. And then the nightmare grew teeth. Because when they ran the voice sample against public audio from Micah Granger's podcast, the pattern of syllables, the rise, the drop, the pacing matched. Not confirmed. But close. Too close. Still, the law needs more than close. So the police dug deeper. They issued a quiet subpoena for Micah's phone records. He hadn't left town. He hadn't stopped preaching. He hadn't stopped smiling that too clean smile. But at 9:44 p.m., his Bluetooth pinged near the Moore's home. At 9:57, his device dropped off the network completely. Then, at 10:21, it pinged again, from a location 15 minutes away. That gap? Unaccounted for. There's something horrifying about a timeline that almost fits. Because it means whatever truth it hides is just out of reach. Just buried deep enough to make people doubt themselves. In the official report, the words were clinical. Possible suspect of interest. Surveillance and digital forensics ongoing. But in the voices of those who loved Sierra, the voices who now played that 40-second recording over and over in their minds, there was no possible. Only heartbreak. Only fury. Only the echo of a whisper through a locked door, recorded by a girl who knew how to be quiet, but not how to stop listening. The street was still. No breeze. No sound. Just the distant hum of a city too busy to notice heartbreak playing out in a dim-lit corner of its map. Officer Reynolds stood motionless in the small apartment complex, staring at the door with the faded number 6. The same door Sierra had once leaned on, laughing with her keys in hand, telling neighbors she'd finally found a place that felt safe. Safe. But inside, everything told a different story now. The living room was eerily neat. Couch pillows fluffed. Remote set carefully on the armrest. The soft scent of lavender still lingered from the candle she always lit at night. And yet, something in the room felt off, like a heartbeat that had stopped mid-beat. On the kitchen table sat her sketchbook, open to a half-drawn portrait. Eyes unfinished, mouth not yet given shape. But the sadness in the pencil strokes, it said everything. Across the room, Sierra's phone buzzed again. Still buzzing. Missed calls. Unopened messages. A single voicemail. From Mira. Timestamped 3:12 a.m. "Sierra, I know you're mad, but I'm scared now. Just call me back. Please." But Sierra never heard it. Detective Monroe turned away from the hallway mirror. Her reflection had always been the one place she could hide behind professionalism, protocol, cold facts. But not today. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the photograph they'd recovered earlier that morning. A grainy printout from a nearby ATM camera. There she was, Sierra, standing with someone. Someone they hadn't yet identified. Someone whose face the camera barely caught. A figure turned halfway, hand reaching toward Sierra's arm. Her body language, tense, uncomfortable, yet not screaming, just complying. It was the last image of her before everything fell silent. And in Monroe's gut, beneath her years of training and hardened instincts, something screamed louder than the sirens outside. Sierra had known the person. She had trusted them. And that trust had cracked open the door to something no one saw coming. Back at Myra's apartment, she stared at her phone, fingers trembling above the screen. Another message? Another prayer? She didn't know what would help anymore. I should have come sooner, she whispered to herself. I should have pushed harder. I knew something was wrong. But guilt, cruel and sharp, doesn't wait for logic. It simply moves in and takes up residence. Then a knock. One sharp, then two more. She rushed to the door, hope warring with fear. But it wasn't Sierra. It was Detective Monroe. No words, just a long, deliberate look, and the simple gesture of handing her the sketchbook. Mira clutched it to her chest. She was scared, Monroe finally said. But she wasn't weak. She fought. We're going to find out the truth. I promise. And then, Monroe walked away, down the lane Sierra used to walk on her way to Myra's place, laughing, singing sometimes, leaving a trace of perfume and light-hearted sarcasm. Now there was only silence. But the sketchbook, Mira would keep it close. Page by page, she'd search for what Sierra might have tried to say in lines and shadows. And maybe, just maybe, the last drawing she never finished would finally speak. Belle, if this story gripped your heart and left you breathless, subscribe now to the Veil of Secret, because some truths hide in plain sight, and others wait in silence to be told. Let's uncover the next one. Together.